Samuel shivered as another chill swept through Valley Forge, his breath a ghostly mist in the biting cold air of the waning winter nights. The camp was alive with whispers and quiet prayers. It pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the cloak of darkness that blanketed everything outside their meager encampments. Samuel huddled close to his weak fire, its flickering light struggling against the oppressive weight of frost on every surface within this makeshift barricade for liberty's soldiers. His fingers were numb and barely functioning as he wrapped himself in a thin ragged blanket that had seen better days, its edges frayed, its threads worn from constant use against the elements beyond these humble huts of wood and canvas. Even so, it was his sole defense against the merciless winter gnawing at him like some relentless beast drawn to weakness instead of warmth itself. Outside, where no fire could reach, snow lay thick upon every surface or white expanse that stretched beyond sight and seemed endlessly deep in its silence. Samuel couldn't help but stare out for a moment longer at the whiteness, as if searching within it for some sign of hope or reprieve from his hunger pangs echoing through empty hollows where once mighty armies roared their defiance against tyranny. Inside, he was surrounded by comrades who shared this battle not just with foreign forces, but also the very elements that sought to claim them as its own. To make a home amongst these men felt like an act of rebellion itself. The sound of his breathing seemed loud against such hollow backdrop. It reminded him he was alive, fighting for something larger than himself in this harsh world turned upside down by distant kings and their insatiable greed. Tonight's hunger gnawed more fiercely at Samuel's gut, as if trying to drag his body back into the earth from whence it came, a stark reminder of what they were risking for this course of their lives against untold wealth and power. It was not just sustenance he needed, but also courage like steel sharpened on stones worn by centuries of oppression before them, now being chiseled into the very essence that might finally see these men free from British yoke, a nation to be birthed in blood and sacrifice upon this foreign soil. Samuel's thoughts drifted to words. He had read words penned by Thomas Paine himself within those crinkled pages of common sense that somehow traveled so far across the ocean, through countless hands, until they reached his own ink-stained fingers and heart. The pamphlet spoke plainly. It urged them to rise up against a monarchy for which many felt no loyalty nor affection, an institution built upon birthrights rather than merit or virtue, that government at any time shall be overthrown or altered for the public good. And whenever a nation arrives at such epoch, as its safety and prosperity may require it. These words struck deep within him. They were not just philosophical musings, but lifelines thrown across an abyss of uncertainty. Samuel had clung to them like flotsam in stormy seas, keeping afloat the flickering hope that he might one day lay down his rifle and take up a pen or hammer, a tool for building this new nation from scratch, where freedom's foundations could be laid without fear of British iron-fisted rule. Paine urged them to think not just about their present discomfort, but the future that awaited if they persevered. If we can find a way, let us unite our voices and spirits, join as one body united in purpose and resolve. Samuel nodded silently with each word read aloud by someone else's voice. Even here, at this moment of frostbite, fingers numbed from cold gnawing on bones, where once flesh had been, he felt a warmth spreading within him, as if those words were kindling to his solar spark that refused to die even amid the darkest night and coldest season. It was time for sleep. It came like mist upon water's surface before settling into stillness with each exhalation of breath, chasing away shadows until only Samuel remained in this silent battleground where he stood alone against a world turned upside down by forces that sought not the people's will but their fear, a reminder even here at Valley Forge how fragile liberty truly was. His thoughts grew dimmer as slumber as he sat by one side where stones bore witness to countless winters. Samuel's hand trembled not with fear, but from an unexpected warmth that swelled within him each time ink-kissed parchment and act as revolutionary and delicate as the birth of liberty itself under this very sky. The soldiers around camp began stirring, their breath visible against a canvas so cold it seemed untouchable. Yet here they were together, sharing stories to keep spirits high amidst shared privation. In those tales that wove through generations of British tyranny and of freedom's fervent glow within the hearts of men like themselves who dared envision a world not held hostage by fear but emboldened in hope, Samuel found himself both listener and participant, as if his own spirit was weaving into their collective tapestry. The night before had been spent with many voices mingling under the moon's summer watch over the encamped souls who were each dream of something greater than themselves. A nation born from shared pain yet destined for glory through relentless courage and unity, as pain so boldly preached, as daylight promised to bring respite, if only in its length, before it would betray them once more with darkness unrelenting at the edge of night's retreat. Samuel took a moment from his writing, or temporary pause that seemed an eternity within these cold confines where warmth was currency and hope measured not by heartbeats but survival. He looked out across rows upon ranks huddled together for comfort against frostbite's cruel touch, their faces obscured behind layers of cloth as much to ward off biting wings as the grim reaper's shadow looming overhead with each passing hour since they had arrived at Valley Forge. Their shared hardships bonded them in ways invisible chains could never hope to dar, as if every time Samuel lifted his pen he was not merely writing but affirming a pact among men who sought freedom from another's grasp for their own blood and future generations' sake. The very concept of liberty, as intangible yet imperative in this frozen world where each man fought to maintain more than just life itself, or sense that one day these young soldiers would stand tall not only as founders but guardians against a darkness born from within. And so his writing flowed onward like the gentle stream outside their camp. With every word he etched into being upon paper roughened by toil and coldness itself seemed less of an act alone, more part of something grander, a chronicle meant not just for eyes, but as a beacon for souls yet unborn who would one day hear tales like his own imbued within the annals of history. The evening's fire crackled its final breath into smoke that twisted and danced with spirits both lively around it, creating shadows upon canvas walls or mural invisible to all but those willing enough to imagine beyond mere survival, where dreamt of trees bore fruits free from British scorn. As the night deepened further still, Samuel closed his parchment, a silent oath between himself and history's unwritten chapters, binding him as surely in spirit as any vow taken with blood upon one's brow during warfare of bodies for freedom or promise he would never forget nor relinquish. His thoughts still carried the echoes from pain, reverberations that stirred his heart and spurred it to beat steadily against an encroaching lethargy born not solely out of exhaustion, but a solemn weight upon those who dared dream so bold amidst such times. As he lay down beside huddled bodies warming themselves by the dying embers, Samuel envisioned himself as one among many, a single thread woven into this unbreakable fabric that was their cause and future, though separate in flesh from each comrade at arms around him who had become more kin than mere acquaintance over shared trials. Amidst the murmurs of restless, sleeping bodies, Samuel found himself humming as Samuel lay his weary body upon a bed of straw that creaked under each motion like an old ship in harbor. He could feel waves crashing against its sides, waves born from dreams and whispers too profound to voice aloud yet impossible not to hear. The night's cool fingers traced the map of his face as if they were reading tales etched into his very skin, stories that spoke lessons learned beneath a sun whose light was often obscured by clouds bearing names like tyranny and oppression. But Samuel no longer saw them with fear. The fire had long since extinguished its life-giving embers to the touch of ash under his fingertips, those same fingers that could now trace invisible rivers where once they traced ink across parchment, or practice he begun as a young boy, learning from books and tales told by fireside. The night air caressed him with promises whispered on wings made not of feathers but hope itself, in the quiet humming that escaped his lips like soft hymns to dreams yet lived out in daylight's light. Samuel found solace amidst a chorus echoing through countless minds across continents, and erased shared longing for freedom's sweet taste on tongues parched by colonial rule. Samuel closed his eyes. Within them danced visions of trees not barred from bearing fruit, but flourishing with untapped abundance, reaching skyward as if to brush the heavens themselves, a world where nature itself stood defiant against British disdain for lands and peoples alike. Each swaying branch seemed a silent testament whispered in rustling leaves, every drop of dew on morning petals an elixir born not from tears, but joy at the thought that perhaps, just maybe, such dreams could one day be reality, a world where colonized hearts found solace and sustenance within their own soil. As his breathing steadied to match the rhythm of a distant heartbeat, he recognized as both kindred spirit and comrade in arms beside him in rest. Samuel allowed himself slip into this shared dreamscape or place where every individual who sought emancipation from chains forged by iron hands found solace within their collective resolve. And though his own heart had once felt the tremors of fear and uncertainty that so many new-found revolutionaries might face, he now understood with unshakable clarity freedom was a right birth not in solitary struggle but woven together like threads into an indestructible tapestry or promise etched upon history's pages by those brave souls who had come before him. As dawn threatened the horizon, its pinkish glow promising yet another day of battles and bravery, Samuel whispered a vow to himself once more that he would carry forth this dreamt-of world into reality. For though his body might not cross oceans or mountains on foot, nor stand shoulder to shoulder with the likes of pain atop Liberty Pole's shoulders, still and always Samuel was part of something greater, a chain unbroken by distance, strengthened through shared purpose, fueled by an eternal flame within every heart that yearned for a dawn where freedom reigned supreme over tyranny's shadowed night. Within the depths of his dream-soaked slumber lay visions not only of battles fought and won, but also celebrations yet to come, a world painted in hues far richer than any colonial master could ever hope to impose, where each soul found their place within a tapestry that bore no strand unnoticed nor story forgotten. And Samuel knew, without doubt, every step taken on this path toward freedom was guided by the spirits of past heroes and those who would come after, a ceaseless march through time itself, leading ever forward, hand in hand with kin not bound merely by blood, but also shared resolve for a world unshackled from chains both literal and metaphorical. And so Samuel found himself humming once more, his melody carried upon the night's breath to ears that had tasted no music yet yearned deeply for in this hallowed moment, where dreamers lay interwoven with sleeping warriors who guarded not just bodies but futures forged from resilience and unwavering courage. Here was a world he dared envision. Herein dwelled the heart of his very purpose, as one small cog within an ever-turning wheel or machine built upon hopes, dreams, and songs, some to awaken every soul that would dare believe in tomorrow's light despite today. In chapter 4 of Samuel's journey through time and spirit came a night like no other. It was as if all his dreams had come to life under an obsidian sky, where stars blinked in silent applause for their daring heroes below, who etched the future with indomitable courage. As he lay nestled among fellow freedom fighters on that hallowed ground or patchwork quilt of diverse souls united by a common cause and shared history, Samuel's heart swelled, not just from exhaustion, but an inexplicable sense of belonging within this grand design, where every person's journey was essential. The encampment around him hummed with stories whispered under breaths that melded into one continuous thread spun through the night air. Tales spoke to his very essence, echoing a time when their ancestors stood shoulder to shoulder against oppression, and now as they fought for what was promised by those brave souls before them. Samuel's mind drifted back in waves of thought that swept him across landscapes both real and imagined, where the past danced delicately with possibility, a dance he had always felt but could never fully partake until now. In this moment suspended between waking thoughts and dreaming visions, or liminal space guarded by ancestral spirits as old friends who knew his name yet spoke in tongues of lullabies rather than commands, Samuel allowed himself to be guided not just by memories, but promises made under moonlit skies. He remembered the oath taken on that pivotal night when history would pivot upon their efforts. He saw visions where every step forward was lauded with cheers of hopeful children and wise elders who knew freedom's scent as one knows perfume, its essence inseparable from their very being. Amidst the warmth emanating from a communal fire pit or beacon for storytellers old and young alike, Samuel found himself drawn to an elder whose eyes held histories, untouched by time's relentless march, yet still glimmering with mischief. The wise one spoke of the great march that had come before this night, when people walked not just toward a land free from chains, but also sought freedom in unity and love, where every handclasp was an affirmation to continue onward together regardless of tribulations or uncertainty ahead, even into realms uncharted by maps. The elder shared tales spun with threads both somber and bright of sacrifice made for the sake of tomorrow's children, who would never know a world shackled in fetters, but rather one that embraced every hue imaginable under its vast canopy, where each voice resonated as clear notes within life's symphony. As he listened, Samuel felt his own heartbeat synchronizing with the drumming cadence of their shared legacy, a rhythm so powerful it could awaken sleeping giants and inspire even those who had forgotten to dream until now. Night after night these stories came forth from a wellspring deep within each other's souls, nourishing them like rain upon thirsty soil. Tales of bravery in the face of adversity that could ignite flames across hearts dampened by despair and cold fear's chill. Together they learned to sing songs born not just from sorrow, but joy for each other's strength, a melody so compelling it seemed as if even time itself paused its relentless ticking in the presence of such harmonious resonance. Samuel closed his eyes and let the cadence guide him through visions that were both sepia-toned memories from yesteryears when he was a boy, wide-eyed with wonder at tales told by grandmothers whose wisdom flowed as freely as wine during celebrations of births into new generations. These gatherings had always been his sanctuary, a place where the past and present fused seamlessly to create tapestries richer than any that money could fashion, woven with golden threads forged in laughter, tears, prayers whispered under breath, and dreams spun from stardust. In this sacred space of unity where each individual's presence was vital as the next link upon a chain strong enough to hold up entire worlds that soared high above their heads like kites caught in an updraft promised by ancestors past, Samuel felt his spirit embraced fully for what it meant, not just to fight, but to live fearlessly, with love. He dreamt of children who would run through fields where once only grass grew, and hearths that had never known the warmth. He now, in chapter 5 of Samuel's journey through time and memories, he found himself standing at a crossroads where past laughter echoed into silence, inviting him to explore deeper stillness within his soul. The air was thick with nostalgia as the sun dipped below the horizon earlier than usual that day, casting an amber glow over Samuel's face and painting it golden like ancient scrollwork on which tales were etched in memory alone. The children of today played not just under the sky, but also beside him. Their youthful spirits danced around his own as though he had always been part of this continuum, bridging eras with every heartbeat and breath shared amongst kinship's embrace. Samuel's hands rested on young Muir's shoulders, a gentle reminder that the fabric between generations was woven not only from threads invisible, but also palpable in touches warm as sunlight upon skin. Mornings had become sacred, and now at dusk they became portals to a world where time held no dominion over him or his loved ones, a place of perpetual autumnal glow that seemed to whisper secrets into the crinkling folds of Samuel's mind as he listened intently. Each secret was not only an echo from yesteryears, but also whispers for tomorrow, inviting both solace and inspiration alike in a harmonious symphony play on heartstrings instead of piano keys. In this twilight realm where the past conversed with present sense, world that had always been his refuge during grandfather's tales by fireside hearths or mothers' lullabies sung into a gentle night wind, Samuel felt himself an integral thread within it. It was here he understood fully what true unity meant, not just to stand together, but also in the profound silence of being heard and seen as one's own complete self-entity without fear or compromise, all while holding hands with those who walked similar paths through life's labyrinthine journey. The children gathered around him now were like saplings rooted deep within soils enriched by histories, untold yet, loved and cherished as their own. They reached for his stories not just to learn, but also felt the strength of ancestral roots entwined with branches that stretched towards skies painted in hues borrowed from dreams. Samuel's tales were no longer mere recountings, rather vessels carrying life lessons imbued within each word, and poor lessons on resilience as timeless as the mountains they once called home, or courage flowing through veins like rivers nourishing parched lands under a relentless sun. As night unfurled her star-studded tapestry across Samuel's vision, he envisioned grandfather's face, withered yet warm as old leather maps charting courses unknown to younger eyes that sought direction in uncertain waters not just of land, but also the soul itself, their laughter resonating through corridors of time like music only felt rather than heard. And Mir, with her unbridled joy and innocent curiosity, a beacon of hope for what tomorrow could hold when hands clasped tightly in friendship or arms wrapped around a shared blanket against life's tempestuous squalls that roared louder each time love grew stronger within the heart's silent chamber. Samuel knew then, amidst these reveries of kinship and memory where every story was an act of preservation and offering to future generations who would sit upon his lap or beside him as he shared tales from days when dragons were believed real in hearts young enough not yet tainted by disbelief. He closed his eyes, each blink a prayer for this sacred space where ancestors past and present mingled freely amongst the living descendants of those who had first found wonder at their reflection on still Watersir Place, untouchable even as it embraced all within its folds with open arms like ancient trees that bow under winters, wait yet never forget to blossom again come spring. As he drifted deeper into the dreamed sea, Samuel understood his journey was not just a solitary voyage, but one shared across generations, an odyssey where every step forward carried echoes of steps long past and whispers for paths ahead yet untrodden by feet young or old. In this world woven from memories, both lived and imagined, he found solace in knowing that though the tapestry may fray at times when threads were pulled too hard in sorrow's grasp, it will always be repaired with love's tender stitch as same hands holding those before him had done. As Samuel's eyelids grew heavy and his body succumbed to sleep's tender embrace, he found himself within a realm where time folded upon itself like layers of velvet soft on one side for quiet reflection, rougher underneath, that protected him from the jagged edges of reality. The room around him was painted with shades of twilight and dawn, always in flux yet eternally serene, as if nature herself had decided to paint a portrait only visible through dream's gentle touch. In this place beyond sleep, Samuel wandered into the heartland where once dragons soared across sapphire skies beside knights of chivalrous intent and kings who believed themselves chosen by fates unseener, land not lost to history, but cherished in perpetuity like a treasured heirloom. His steps were guided through whispering fields where crops swayed with the wisdom of ages, each stalk holding memories etched into their very fibers as they rustled secrets only understood by those who listened closely enough to hear them humming in unison. The air around him shimmered occasionally like a mirage when he came upon reflective pools waters where not one's reflection could be seen, but rather the echoes of souls long departed or yet to come who shared the same sanctum with Samuel at different ages. He saw himself as an infant cradled in his mother's arms, and a greybeard whose hair flowed like autumn leaves whispering to winter's approach, their presence warm against the coolness of time itself. In one such pool lived harmony, or spirit born from laughter shared between generations who knew no bounds by blood or belief, but joined in joyful union as if they were kin chosen at birth for this singular purpose, preserving tales that would transcend lifetimes. With eyes like the deepest night sky, and a voice both silky smooth and sonorous, Harmony wove around Samuel's stories of love found within ancient couples who defied convention, but proved stronger than any dragon's breath or knight's lance histories that spoke truth to humanity in ways words alone could not capture. As he listened intently beneath the boughs where elder trees stood sentinel over this hidden garden, Samuel felt an ancestral energy thread through his veins like a shared pulse with all who had come before and those yet, unborner connection as natural to him now in sleep's domain as it was during waking life. And there beneath the great oak's canopy that seemed ancient enough, not even time itself could recall its seed, he met Eunice, a guardian of tales whose very being sparkled with starlight and contained within her eyes an eternity captured in moments passing by like shadows fleeting across dusk. Eunice told Samuel stories where every hero's journey was but another brushstroke on the canvas that became legend or history penned not just through victories or defeats, but also within quiet hours spent under moonlit skies listening to lovers' promises made in hushed tones. She spoke of times when dragons breathed fire into hearts rather than destruction, and knights sought harmony over conquest. Her voice was a lullaby that soothed the soul as if every syllable had been perfected by time itself, crafting tales with such grace they could only emerge from within this dreamscape's heart or place where dragons were not mere mythology but emblematic of courage and wonderment. Together Samuel journeyed through landscapes painted in the hues of 1,000 sunsets, while Eunice shared tales that wrapped around his mind, weaving threads into memories he had yet to experience at tapestry, where each story told was both an end and beginning within this boundless realm. One evening, as twilight kissed day goodbye with its rosy lips, Samuel found himself upon a hill overlooking the village that stood at life's threshold between yesterday's echoes and tomorrow's whisper place, where dragons now only existed in tales told by candlelight to wide-eyed children. Here he saw his own reflection not as an old soul, but rather adorned with fresh, unmarred youthfulness that even the relentless march of time had yet to claim from him, a vision granted by this enchanted world where dragons were real and every heartbeat carried their essence. In moments when sorrow's shadow crept upon them in silence like fog over fields, Samuel learned through Eunice guidance that fractures within the tapestry. As Samuel and Eunice stood upon that hill overlooking the village, a gentle breeze playfully tousling their hair as they embraced under its caressing touch, nightfall began to enshroud them in a blanket of stars above. The twilight had woven magic into every leaf and whispered secrets through rustling reeds by the river bank below. It was this very evening that Samuel felt he could finally find his place within Eunice's tales, stories where dragons breathed fire not just in fables, but also inside hearts. Their journey together had been one of discovery and intertwining destinies, Samuel learning the ancient ways from a mystical creature whose scales shimmered with histories untold as if they were made of living memories themselves, while Eunice reveled in sharing wisdom that flowed like water through time's eternal stream. Samuel often found himself enraptured by tales where dragons soared over the landscapes painted in hues beyond mortal ken, places untouched by sorrow or age and vibrant with a life of their own, all within Eunice. Stories that never seemed to end but always felt like homecoming. On this evening, as they watched twilight surrender its throne to the velvety night sky punctuated only by celestial bodices or myriad silver and golden points, sparkling in synchrony with their own reflection of youthful messianism, began a tale that spoke not just of dragons, but also touched on matters deeper than even they had dared to address. It was Eunice's way. After all, tales were the means through which reality became ethereal and wisdom took flight like so many fire-breathing beasts across canvases vast as oceans, yet intimate enough for one's heart alone to understand them without a single spoken word. Eunice spoke of dragons that embodied the essence of courage, love, compassion, all virtues Samuel longed to embody more fully in his own life beyond this enchanted realm, and its tales spun from dreams into existence before their very eyes each night, with every syllable carefully chosen, as if by ancient artisans themselves. Eunice's voice was the thread pulling at Samuel's heartstrings like a bowstring pulled upon strings of fate itself, for melody that played on through his soul in harmonies he had not known echoed within. As they listened to each other and absorbed stories old as time, Samuel felt himself being unwound from the tapestry where every thread was frayed by fears untold. Here, among dragons' flames that danced with the roars of wisdom upon Eunice's tales, he found fragments of his own courage to mend these threads back into something beautifuler, fabric interwoven so thoroughly through their shared experiences and the stories they had traversed together. Their voices would rise in unison as though nature itself was listening with a watchful ear on high. Through tales, we understand that even when shadows fall upon our hearts like cloaks of night's own making, Eunice whispered gently to Samuel, whose eyes were now closed but whose soul felt full beneath the blanket. Samuel nodded as he let out a soft sigh, breath caught between worlds, feeling his very essence resonate with every word that passed through their lips, and knowing deep within it was where true strength lay hidden amidst tales of grandeur such as these, in understanding oneself to be the protagonist on life's stage. When Eunice spoke next, Samuel's heart felt lighter yet heavier all at once, for every tale that ends with a dragon soaring into legendary skies is but an invitation for us to dream further and find our wings within the stories. The words seemed to echo through time itself, as if Eunice was not just narrating tales. He was also shaping them around Samuel's very essence. The night wore on with constellations telling their own ancient mythologies overhead, while they spoke of dragons whose songs weaved the fabric between realms, or place where fractures mended themselves under stories. Gentle persuasion, that time, for once at this crossroads upon the hill overlooking a village court, in its threshold danced betwixt yesterday and tomorrow's whispers. As Eunice shared tales of dragons whose wings could paint portals to worlds unknown, while their eyes held depth beyond mere sight, Samuel felt himself becoming part of these stories, his own story entwined with the essence of as Eunice and Samuel found themselves enveloped in a cocoon of tales spun from dreams. They sat by the fire that had not flickered for eons, yet seemed to burn with an eternal flame or beacon calling forth listeners lost between worlds. The night wrapped around them like a blanket woven from threads of silver moonlight, and whispered secrets. It was as if their spirits were cradled within its folds, safe and serene amidst the vastness of creation's tapestry. "Samuel," Eunice began, with his voice melding into a lullaby that soothed ancient wounds alike himself to heal from an age before time was measured by clock or calendar, but by stories unfurling like petals in the sun. "Do you remember when we spoke of Elizier's garden?" A faint smile touched Samuel's lips as his mind drifted back across eons to a realm where trees bore emerald crowns heavy with wisdom and blooms that whispered to those who would listen. The air hummed vibrant melodies of life, threading through the foliage like liquid light, casting forth tales never told but felt in every sensation woven into existence's fabric. Here was a garden where reality danced hand in hand with mythos, and each leaf held its own legend. "Yes, I remember," Samuel whispered back, his voice as soft as the rustling of leaves, that spoke louder than words ever could in this world Eunice conjured a place just beyond the brink, where shadows tangled with dreams and stars sank beneath willowy boughs. "In Elizier's garden every bloom had a name as unique to it as you are to me," said Eunice. His words spun silk around Samuel's thoughts like threads of gold in the loom that was life itself, fair friendship and embroidery upon history's grand garment. "The azerbel, for instance, whose petals shimmered with a hue as deep and mysterious as your eyes." Samuel chuckled lightly at Eunice. Affectionate barb! He knew the feeling of being eternally enchanted by someone who saw beauty in his very soul, a reflection that made him feel both familiar yet otherworldly, like a character born between chapters. The azerbel was not just any flower, but one imbued with magic to reveal truths hidden even from those within its own heart. It could unveil the core of what makes an individual unique and strong, just as Eunice had shown him through their shared journey. His essence resonated amidst stories. "A garden where every story told was a petal that bloomed," continued Samuel with reverent tones, "for such tales were not mere words, but the lifeblood of Elizier's existence, a realm suspended betwixt fable and fact, reality cradled within allegory's embrace." Here they had discovered themselves. In their essence lay strength that was as elemental to them as water flowed through rivers or wind swept across plains. And what of the wisp-wind vines? Samuel's voice dipped lower, inviting Eunice into a shared memory where such tendrils could trace one's thoughts and weave dreams within tender place that felt like home yet was as foreign to most others. Their friendship had been nurtured among the roots of these vines. Together they'd unraveled mysteries whispered by leaves, secrets sewn into their very being through stories told beneath canopies where starlight kissed earth with gentle ardor. Eunice's gaze settled upon Samuel, as if he held all the tales of Elizier within his eyes, or mirror reflecting back a soul so intricately woven that neither could have existed without its counterpart, their bond strengthened by stories and dreamt histories alike. "In every tale where whisper-wind vines entwined our spirits," Eunice replied tenderly, "we found not just refuge, but wings unfurled to lift us beyond the horizons of what was known." The night seemed to pause in reverence, as if even time itself bowed before their shared narrative story, where dragons dance between clouds, and every whisper held power enough to mend rifts across worlds. The pair had witnessed such marvelous wonders, felt the pulse of magic that coursed through realms like lifeblood. Here in Ely, in chapter 9 of our tale, as Samuel and Eunice sat nestled in a grove where whisperwind vines wrapped around ancient trees like protective arms embracing old friends, their fingers intertwined with those leaves they so dearly loved. Each vine had been imbued by the moan after the other's dream and wish. Every touch seemed to strengthen not just the bond between these two souls, but also resonated through Elizier's heartstrings, as if it were their own, an orchestra of unity echoing across realms. The night was adorned with a tapestry woven from silver and indigo dreamlight. Stars blinked knowingly above, while the moon spilled its luminous essence over them, like liquid amethysts cascading down to kiss their skin, anointing it for another journey beneath these timeless canopies. The air was laced with a scent of petrichor and jasmine, or perfumed testament to the earth's gentle embrace after night's rain that had recently caressed Elizier in fond memory. Eunice shared tales as effortlessly as breathing, his voice painting vistas where dragons soared through nimbus skies and creatures of legend roamed free amongst us mere mortals, her world unmarred by time or sorrow, but alive with the magic that dwelled in every rustling leaf. Samuel listened intently. Their shared history was a river flowing downstream, sometimes calm, at times tumultuous, yet always moving forward together towards an unknown and glorious horizon beyond Elysia's realm of green whispers and starlit dreams. Together they had faced the nightshade hollow, a place not meant for those who found solace in sunlight, but rather where shadows played hide-and-seek with fear, wrapping around hearts like a cloak woven from despair's own threading. There were moments of darkness therein, when their footsteps echoed through caverns that seemed to absorb the very essence of hope itself. Yet it was within those hollow depths where Samuel and Eunice had discovered an unspoken understanding, a kinship deeper than roots reaching into Elysia's sacred soil. As they sat beneath this evening's firmament with eyes half closed in the soft embrace of nightfall, their hearts spoke, without words or silent conversation, that needed no translation between beats and breath, as if every shared silence was a verse from an unwritten ballad dedicated to all who sought refuge within whisper-wind vines. Samuel reached out with his hand towards Eunice's own. They closed their eyes, taking solace in the touch of another soul bound by fate's intricate designer, kinship so profound that it felt as though no separation was possible between them and Elysia itself. Their shared dream to bridge worlds had already begun with this very moment beneath these ancient sentinels, for each memory, every whispered wish from their souls now interlaced like the vines themselves, a living legacy of love entangled within stories only they could tell. A gentle breeze stirred through Elysia's forest as if to acknowledge Samuel and Eunice's pact, sending shivers down spines that resonated with echoes of an ancient magic too profound for the uninitiated, or secret language spoken only by those who had been deemed worthy. It was in these moments they were no longer two friends, but a single entity cast from dreams into reality's embrace, their every step upon Elysia's soil imbued with purpose and promise, as vast as the cosmos itself, for story not merely told or read, but lived breath by heartbeat. As they stood to leave this grove of whisperwind vines behind for a moment, Samuel's hand lingered upon Eunice's arm before he drew it back, with an unspoken promise etched into their shared gaze, or pact that no horizon could divide between them. With the softest sigh and eyes alight, with determination beneath twilight canopies, they ventured forth towards Elysia's next chapter, yet to be inscribed in a tale of dreamers who dared to weave their destinies amongst threads spun from stardust, their story one of courageous hearts entwined by faith in whispers and wings unfurling toward the promise of tomorrows where magic reigned supreme. For Samuel, Eunice, and Elysia's realms alike knew that every dawn bore in chapter 10 of our tale, where dreams and reality converge with delicate threads tied by an ancient pact. Samuel and Eunice found themselves at a threshold that promised revelation, yet was veiled in shadows cast not just from the forest, but also within their own hearts. As they stood beneath Elysia's canopy of twilight, Wispis's symphony born out of centuries old, oak leaves rustling with secrets and sighing winds carrying tales as old as time itself, two friends felt a presence, an energy that hummed through the undergrowth like vines reaching for light. A figure emerged from behind elder tree groves, knotted guardians of wood. It was Lyria, their guide and mentor, whose wisdom had led them to this crossroad in life, where choices could shape destinies or shatter dreams into dust beneath the unyielding march of time. Her cloak billowed as if painted by a breeze with strokes from an ethereal brush. It whispered promises and forewarnings, her eyes holding depths mirrored only in night skies ablaze with stars, same celestial bodies that had guided their spirits since the first light touched Elysia. Samuel, she began softly, and Eunice, as if to acknowledge the gravity of what they were about to undertake and how profound was the magic threaded in every leaf and twig here upon this sacred soil, or place where nature itself bore witness to their pact. The path ahead is woven with trials that will test not only your courage, but also the strength of bonds forged by whispers on winds. With a nod, Samuel felt Eunice's hand brush against his own, a touch as light yet firmly rooted in their shared resolve. He knew this forest was no ordinary place. It seemed to hum with an ancient energy that resonated through the very core of Elysia's essence and beyond into realms they had only dared dream about during night's silent conversations under a sky jeweled by constellations unknown in other worlds. As if summoned, Eunice spoke with deliberate calmness that wrapped around them like the forest mist. "We are ready to face whatever comes our way for Elysia and her kin. His voice held an unwavering strength born from countless nights spent contemplating under moonbeams those beams which now seemed as if they were guiding their steps forward. Lyria, with a knowing smile that could still the flutter of moth wings in darkness before flame's touch had ever kissed them, laid her hand upon Eunice's arm and then on Samuel's shoulder, a gesture binding not just two, but three souls who were about to embark on an odyssey written across eons. "The forest will be your compass," she said with a voice that carried the weight of untold stories, "and Elizur's heartbeat shall guide you as surely as it guides her leaves and blooms. With their destinies intertwined like roots beneath soil's embracer foundation, strengthened by trials yet to come but understood in the depth of shared purpose they carried within them now." Samuel, Eunice, and Lyria took a step forward into Elizur's next chapter as daybreak approached with hues that painted skies once more pinkish blue, a reminder even darkness holds beauty when viewed through eyes unclouded by fear or doubt. "Tomorrow," Eunice said, gazing at the horizon where sun and earth kiss goodbye, "tonight's last sigh brings new begin 0ns." His voice held a promise of continuance, a perpetual cycle that saw their story not as an end but simply another thread in Elizur's vast tapestry. Lyria nodded once more before turning to face them with eyes glowing like molten silver, echoes of the stars themselves. "We will find our way through trials and tribulations, for we are not just dreamers, but architects now." The forest listened as her words settled softly among its leaves, her vow that their journey was etched in stardust. "And so," she concluded, voice a gentle echo against the backdrop of awakening life around them and beyond into worlds uncharted by mortal eyes where magic reigned supreme as ruler over fear, "we walk forward Todferer's guardians for Elizur's future." Samuel felt as dawn broke, with a hesitance that spoke of both endings and beginnings. Samuel gazed out across Elizur's vibrant horizon where daylight began to seep into existence once more, a gentle reminder in its own right that even the darkest night yields to light. Beside him stood Eunice, his loyal friend whose presence had become as much a comforting constant as it was vital for their journey ahead, and across from them shimmered Lyria's form, her spirit indomitable though often cloaked in sorrow over past losses, her testament to the strength that love could bestow upon even those who felt most fragile. "Tomorrow," Eunice began with a hopeful smile touching his lips as they watched daylight blush across Elizur's canopy, "brings new beginnings." His voice carried through the awakening air like a promise that each sunrise was an invitation to renewal. Lyria turned her gaze upon them, and with eyes alight as if they had captured starlight within their depths, declared softly yet resolutely, "We will find our way." Her resolve did not waver. It grew stronger from the trials that came before, a resilience born of shared experiences. Samuel found himself nodding in agreement, for he too knew well enough the pattern Elizur played, a cycle where endings were but precursors to fresh starts, and every hardship weathered was another stone laid upon their path toward guardianship over this enchanted realm that had become both home and haven. Together they faced what lay ahead, knowing well the journey would be long not just for Elizur's protection, but also in safeguarding its magic from encroaching darkness unseen by mortal eyes. They were not mere wanderers through this world. Their very essence had become intertwined with every spell and creature within it, binding them to a purpose far beyond themselves. Her guardian, they would one day be remembered for across the stars as champions of Elizur's enduring splendor. As morning light unfurled like delicate wings in full bloom over their heads, Lyria continued with her silent vow echoing through time and heartbeat alike. "And so," she concluded, "we walk forward Todferer's guardians for Elizur's future." Samuel felt the weight of that responsibility settle upon his shoulders, but also a comfort in knowing he was not alone. The forest around them hummed with life and secrets untold as they moved through its embrace, each step taking them closer to destinations unknown yet somehow predestined for their arrival, or path woven by the threads of fate that seemed almost too intricate even for Elizur's ever-knowing deities. They were becoming more than travelers in this realm. They had become an integral part of its very being, a living testament to hope and courage against all odds, an unspoken pact between themselves that their spirits would never falter under Elizur's gaze or the trials it offered. Above them stretched skies ablaze with colors yet unknown as if nature itself painted its own masterpiece, a reminder of beauty in transition and change, or comforting backdrop to their thoughts that wandered like fireflies at dusk through memories of days past, when the world seemed simpler but was no less treacherous. The air carried whispers of ancient magic on every breath they drew. It hummed with potential, urging them forward as guardians in a realm where wonder never ceased and darkness knew not to encroach upon Elysia's bounds for fear of the Unwar-Zero-Besurd creatures who resided within its heart. As Samuel looked into Lyria's eyes, a reflection of their collective soul, he saw past trials overcome but recognized them as integral fibers in a fabric that had become his own skin over time. Each thread was essential to the strength and integrity they now embodied together with Aeneas by his side. Their bond transcended mere friendship. It was forged of shared resolve, mutual respect born from trials endured as one body against Elysia's ever-shifting challenges that demanded not just courage but wisdom to navigate the complex interplay between light and shadow upon their sacred home's canvas. Within these woods whispered stories yet untold of spirits long gone, whose echoes shaped destinies in ways unfathomable by even Elysia's ancient eyes, a reminder that all existence was connected through the ages. Like Illyria's gaze met Samuel's with an intensity that mirrored his own resolve as he stood on a hill overlooking Elysia, where morning mist danced atop ancient trees like spirits awakening from their slumber. Today marked the end of one journey and perhaps, just possibly, the beginning of another. Guardians embarking upon paths intertwined since an unforeseen destiny had drawn them together as kin under Elysia's vibrant skies. Samuel, Lyria began with a voice that was both melodic and warm against his skin. The time has come for us to delve deeper into the heart of this realm, to uncover its secrets shrouded in whispers from an age when magic flowed as freely as water. Samuel nodded solemnly. Their shared quest was not merely about preserving Elysia's splendor, but also understanding it, for they knew that to save the land, one must first comprehend its essence, their truth etched into every leaf and stone, herein lying beneath them like a sacred tome of unspoken history. As dawn approached, with tender fingers caressing Elysia's face awake from night's embrace to greet the sun, Samuel wrapped his arm around Lyria for comforter, silent, vow not just that he would stand by her side, but in spirit as well, through every twist and turn their adventure might hold. Together they had faced shadows born of malice, where darkness sought dominion over light. Together now was how the guardianship promised to endure beyond this day's horizon. "You feel it too, don't you?" Lyria whispered after a moment, her cheek resting upon his shoulder like an offering of trust and companionship as they descended into Elysia beneath azure skies that seemed almost sentient in their vastness. The pull to unearth what lies beyond the veiled past's embrace, guiding us towards understanding. Samuel's heartbeat resonated with agreement, each thump a drumroll marching into unknown depths of Elysia, where ancient magic coursed like rivers through forgotten caverns. They sought counsel from the sage Sir Trio, whose wisdom had once shaped history itself, and who now entrusted to Samuel an amulet imbued with runes that pulsated faint blue light. A key, they were told, would lead them closer to Elysia's heart, where secrets slumbered. The path wound through emerald meadows kissed by sunlight, and then into the company of whispering trees, whose roots seemed intertwined with fate itself. Their leaves rustled tales in a language beyond words, hinting at forgotten truths Elysia yearned to reveal, an invitation for those brave enough to listen. In quiet reprieve beside an unassuming brook, where the water sang of clarity and purification, before joining with grander rivers bound by destinies, thread through this land, Samuel and Lyria shared silent reflections on their journey so far, each ripple a verse in Elysia's ever-unfolding story. Ahead lay the ancient grove of Arcanis, or place where time folded upon itself like origami swans floating downstream, its boughs heavy with law and legacy that seemed to cradle souls rather than leaves or fruit, as they sought shelter within an embrace offered by knowing branches. As twilight approached on the eve of their first full moonlit revelation beneath Arcanis, watchful ice their spirits woven into Elysia's tapestry, each thread vital in safeguarding its essence against encroaching silence and shadows unseen. A ceremony awaited them here, where they would stand before the altar of remembrance to invoke blessings on their quest for understanding. An act both solemn and sacred, as Elysia's future hung upon it like stars waiting in quiet anticipation above a slumbering world below. Here, beneath Arcany's ancient canopy at nightfall, when the moon blessed them with its silvery benediction, their journey took on an ethereal quality, as if reality itself were but one of many layers to explore within Elysia's boundless mysteries, a realm where every leaf and stone had tales etched into their very being, waiting for the day when they would be heard. For in this chapter's end as much was left untold as it was discovered. Samuel knew that with Lyria by his side he faced not just trials. Of Samuel felt his spirit weave itself into Lyria's, warmed to hearts entwined with purpose, as they approached an altar not of stone or wood but crafted from whispering reeds that hummed softly in their presence, inviting stories and hopes to be etched upon its surface. Here lay the essence of Elysia. Here was where memories could breathe life into legacy through spoken blessings, or tradition as old as Arcany's itself, yet felt new with each word they spoke, that held power beyond their understanding, but none the less vital to what awaited them in this sacred night. As the first full moon bathed Elysia's realm in a silvery benediction, Samuel and Lyria stood together before Arcany's altar of remembrance, a place where time seemed suspended, as if each story whispered into existence was more than mere past but eternal. The air itself held the sacred quietude that only nightfall's embrace could bring to this secluded glade, and it felt like stepping through a veil between worlds, with every tentative word spoken upon Arcany's reedy altar in invocation of blessings for their shared quest. Samuel began recounting the tale that had brought them here, once in Elysia's youth, where magic and nature conspired to birth wonder into existence, his voice trailing off as Lyria added her own thread to weave with Samuel's. Together they wove a narrative tapestry richer than any single tale could hold, with each account of triumph over darkness or love found in the most unexpected places. Their voices grew more confident, or harmonious duet echoing through Elysia's hidden heart, where every leaf and stone whispered tales into being as they spoke them aloud to Arcany's listening ears. As stories flowed like a river of time itself, with the moonlight serving only as their witness, Samuel felt an ancient magic awakened within him, or sense that his words were not just for Elysia, but for all who would listen in times both past and future, when Arcany's stood sentinel over secrets untold. Lyria's laughter mingled with the night air as she recounted a time of playful misdeeds, her spirit free like the flight of an owl through Elysia's ancient forests, her stark contrast to Samuel's tales that often wound back into somber reflections on duty and honor. Their voices carried forth in harmony until they reached a tale so poignant it seemed as if time itself had paused, the weight of its significance hanging over Elysia like dew upon cobweb-laced thorn bushes at dawn's first lighter memory that bound their fates to Arcany's with threads silvered by moonbeams and dusted in starlight. As Lyria's final words resonated, there was a stirring of something unseen yet undeniably felt, the realization that they were not just recounting legends, but living the mad dance between fate and will upon this very night, where everything could change for Elysia if only their stories held power to sway its course. Amidst a crescendo of shared remembrances, Samuel felt the final piece falling into place like an intricate puzzle completed beneath Arcany's knowing gazer, secret long buried in whispered law, now ready for revelation as Lyria and he had sown its seeds with their own tales. Their words were not just echoes of what was, but beacons to guide Elysia towards a future where every soul might find refuge within the folds of shared stories, an invitation extended beneath Arcany's watchful eyes that promised unity and understanding among all who sought its wisdom. As they finished their tales before the altar, with hearts lighter than feathers on the winter weightlessness born from truths revealed through storytelling under a moon-kissed sky, Samuel knew what he needed as dawn's first light touched upon dew-laden cobwebs lacing thorn bushes that guarded Arcany's. A sense of profound calm enveloped Lyria and Samuel amidst their final tales under its ancient boughs. The world seemed to pause as the altar stood sentinel in this sacred clear-air place, where legends were born from whispered words, just like on that fateful night when they first uncovered Elysia's secret. It was here, beneath Arcany's knowing gaze and under a sky kissed by moonlight, their stories took root within the soul of nature itself, a mystical bond now woven into history with threads silvered in lunar glow and dusted light from distant stars still lingering upon each word they had shared. The tales spun not just to entertain or pass time, but acted as conduits for healing, bridging the chasms between hearts that sought solace within one another's experiences are testament of their bond strengthened by trials and sealed with memories now sown into destiny. Their voices were soft yet resonant echoes reverberating through time's corridor as they wove narratives spun from truth, imparting wisdom that transcended mere fables to become beacons of guidance for all who would listen under Arcani's embrace in years henceforth zero. Lyria began with a tale not unlike those her grandmother had told her, voice painting vivid scenes as she spoke, the words passed down from one generation to another through whispered law, revealing how they were tied together by fate's own hand on that night when their destinies first intertwined. She recounted with fondness and a touch of melancholy for days past their youthful escapades in hidden groves where laughter mingled freely like the morning breeze, echoes which seemed as real now under Arcani's watchful eye as they had once been beneath its branches. Samuel shared stories from his travels across vast lands, and Seaside's voice painting pictures of worlds beyond their own with tales that sparked wonderment in the hearts of listeners, transporting them to places where time flowed like rivers through endless valleys or stood still as if encased within crystalline ice. He spoke not just for entertainment, but because he knew these stories carried a power deeper than mere amusement. They held keys that unlocked understanding and empathy between souls, connecting them across distances both vast and metaphorical to one another beneath Arcani's silent vigilance, their watchful guardian of the tales, shared under its tender shade. As Lyria finished her tale with a sigh as soft as falling leaves in autumnal twilight, Samuel's voice grew stronger like an awakening dawn dispelling nighttime haze. He spoke now not only from memory but also carrying forth knowledge newly unearthed by their combined efforts, secret of a Lizure that lay buried for centuries. It was a revelation both humbling and empowering, as they stood together in this hallowed place where truth resonated with the earth itself. It bound them to Arcani's just as irrevocably as any tale told before its ancient trunk or promise of unity among those who sought refuge underneath its sprawling canopy. Their voices, once hesitant like dew-kissed petals trembling at the first light's caress, now grew firm and steadfast with certainty born from shared remembrance as a crescendo of tales that had begun as ripples in a pond but swelled to waves crashing upon distant shores. As they narrated their experiences intertwined like roots beneath the soil's surface, each word was imbued with intent and purpose. Every phrase whispered echoes from within themselves, a symphony of shared human experience that reverberated through Arcani's leaves as though etching them into history. As they concluded their last story before breaking camp to journey forth anew on life's unpredictable path, the world beneath Arcani's seemed imbued with a luminescence both internal and external, their tales now living entities that thrived within its protective embrace like wildflowers blooming in spring's nurturing soil. Their words had become seeds of wisdom sown for others to gather, finding strength not only from their own experiences, but also the collective power imparted through sharing or testament to human connection that transcended time and space. Within this hallowed grove where past mingled freely with present under Arcani's, Evan had always been the silent one amongst them until he found his voice within this grove's nurturing embrace. Where once a timid shadow dwelt behind wide eyes and unkempt hair, now stood an individual whose words flowed like Arcani's own sapstity, rich in essence. His story was one of loss that had plagued him since childhood until he found solace within the grove's protective folds. His mother's laughter and her soothing voice were absent from their home but ever present beneath Arcani's verdant roof where they now gathered. As Evan spoke of a girl named Marla, his sister by blood yet an invisible presence in his life since childhood due to the misjudgment that had kept them apart for years, the air around him thickened with emotion and realization. Through sharing painful truths, he was slowly mending fractures within himself. Nina listened intently as Evan's voice wove its delicate threads of connection between his heartbreak and her own silent battles against societal norms that had long dictated the roles she must play or dance with expectations from which freedom was an unattainable dream until Arcani's ancient trunk offered shelter. In sharing their stories, they found strength in vulnerability. As Evan laid bare his yearning for reunion and Marla revealed her struggle against a rigid society that denied personal choice or liberation born of acceptance amongst newfound companions who had become the family Arcani's promised by its presence underfoot. The tales were not one-sided, as they came from all walks of life. Young Torek shared his story with a bravery that belied years still to come, a tale of fleeing war's cruel grasp and seeking refuge in the world beyond Arcanes, where opportunities bloomed like wildflowers after rain. His journey had been one not just across lands, but within himself, as he learned resilience, trust, and hope from his unexpected kinship with a group who shared tales woven through sorrow, joy, triumphs of spirit over adversity, and the enduring strength to continue forward despite life's capricious ways. As they spoke their stories aloud beneath Arcanes' watchful gaze, words took on magic. No longer were these mere narratives, but living entities that traveled through time and space as if by telepathy, their essence seeping into the soil of this sacred ground where every tale was a seed planted for someone to find. The grove had become not just an ally in their journey, providing sanctuary from prying eyes or judgmental whispers, but also a catalyst that transformed silence into psalm. Each storyteller discovered within themselves the power of legacy and connection, a realization they carried forth as if Arcanes itself imbued them with its own essence. As night deepened, their voices faded to hushed murmurs beneath starlit skies where constellations told tales older than time. These nomads found solace in the shared human experience that linked each of their paths, or tapestry richer and more profound for its interwoven threads. Arcanes rustled approvingly, not with a creak or crackle, but as though it acknowledged the depths to which these weary souls had been called upon through shared stories that transcended their individuality, or collective testament of human spirit and resilience echoed in every leaf's whisper. When dawn threatened on this final night's horizon, they prepared themselves for a journey anew. The grove was not just shelter, but mentor to its guests, as it had been throughout ages past when seekers found solace within its embrace, a refuge where stories born of Arcanes' ancient routes continued their eternal flow through time. As Evan, Nina, and Tarek packed up the remnants of campsite belongings beneath a sky blushing with promise, they felt as if each story shared was an echo that would resonate in perpetuity, and ask the fireflies like flickered like ancient runes, telling tales without words of generations that came before them. As dawn began to stretch its rosy fingers across the skyline, Evan felt an awakening within him, not just from sleep, but as though his very soul had been stirred by centuries-old echoes resonating through time. In Arcanes' heart was a place where every leaf and bough seemed imbued with stories of resilience. Tarek, who always found comfort sitting cross-legged at the base of an old oak tree, whose roots felt like fingers laced into history itself, closed his eyes to let himself be enveloped by a sense of connection that transcended mere human experience, a communion with spirits long past and future souls yet unborn. The grove had indeed become their refuge as much as it was the sanctuary for others before them. Here in Arcanes, stories were not merely told, but lived through every rustling leaf and whispering wind that brushed against one's skin like a tender caress of kinship with the essence itself. The nomads prepared themselves to journey forth once more as each shared tale lingered on their lips, a symphony composed of laughter, tears, wisdom, love lost and found, all carried forward by these humble souls who sought solace within Arcanes' embrace, but also became its guardians through the stories they passed down. The air was crisp with anticipation for what mysteries lay ahead as Evan clasped Nina's hand firmly in his own, an unspoken promise to return, always a pilgrim at heart seeking communion within Arcanes' sacred grounds where time flowed like honey and the past whispered secrets into those who would listen. As they packed their belongings beneath an awakening sky that blushed with hopeful light yet held on to whispers of darkness, Evan felt a profound gratitude for this place, a refuge where stories born from Arcanes' ancient routes continued their eternal flow through time and into the very essence of those who visited. The grove was not just shelter, but mentor as well. Its teachings were subtle yet pervasive, weaving themselves intricately into one's being, until they became a part of you, a living testament to human spirit enduring beyond individuality and embraced by nature itself in this hallowed space. The fireflies began their nightly ballet as Evan placed the last item on his small pile beside Nina's, Tarek's quiet reflection accompanying them both, their silent reverence for stories shared not only amongst themselves, but with every living creature they encountered along this path of discovery. With each step away from Arcanes, under a sky that promised new horizons and yet held the comfort of constellations old as time, Evan felt an inner light guiding his way, luminance born out of shared histories echoed in every leaf's whisper beneath their feet on this journey into tomorrow. And though each day would bring them to new destinations and encounter different souls who might seek the same solace they had found within Arcanes' ancient groves, Evan knew that he carried with him a piece of its essence or legacy, not only for himself but as an offering back into the world. For in sharing stories beneath starlit skies or sun-drenched days, when laughter and tears were shed amongst friends turned family by fate's hand alone, they all became part of Arcanes' living storybook, each chapter written upon their spirits, imprinting tales that would resonate within the core of humanity like a gentle yet unwavering heartbeat. As dawn threatened on this final night's horizon and Evan watched Tarek rise with graceful acceptance, his own eyes heavy but brightened by shared experiences, he felt an overwhelming sense that these moments were not merely passing through time as transient guests within Arcanes' brow. Instead, they had become a part of its enduring narrative, a testament to the power of legacy and connection forged in quiet communion with this mystical place where stories flowed like water downstream into. Evan watched as Tarek stretched beneath a canopy of twinkling stars that seemed to cradle them in their shared journey, his movements an echoing dance reflective of countless others who had found themselves entranced by Arcanes' timeless embrace. As the first light began its hesitant crawl across the horizon, painting it with hues too beautiful for waking eyes, Evan felt a gentle pull towards slumber, a feeling as natural to him now as breathing itself within these sacred woods where time had always seemed fluid and forgiving. Arcanes has been generous, Tarek murmured softly into the cool night air, his voice carrying with it an undercurrent of gratitude that resonated between them like a shared heartbeat or harmony born from their intertwined paths through this ancient grove. Evan felt his own breath synchronized to these words, and knew without question they were not alone in feeling the weight of history within Arcanes' embrace. The two friends had come together, drawn by stories that transcended mere tales, or legacy etched into every rock face around them, whispered through rustling leaves like secrets meant only for their ears and souls to comprehend fully on this final night of travels within Arcanes' domain. This grove was more than a place. It held the essence of connection that flowed as freely as its streams, or communion with spirits past, present, and future who had all sought refuge in these woods before them. As they lay side by side on moss-laden ground, Evan's thoughts turned towards tales. He yearned to tell Tarek of the very first time their paths crossed, with an Arcanist moment when curiosity overcame fear and led him here with his own family years ago as a young boy. It was in this sacred space that both men had found solace, where they could share stories without restraint under moonlit skies or sunbeams filtered through ancient canopies. He remembered how it felt to be wrapped up within Arcanes' protective folds for the first time, the way his mother's hand trembled as she held him close and whispered secrets of strength that came from understanding one must always return home, even when journeys take them far. Her words were like seeds planting themselves in Evan's young heart. Some places are more than just a spot on the map. They can teach you about life itself. He could still hear his grandfather's deep voice recounting legends of old, of heroes who traversed realms and beasts that roamed this very grove, leaving behind imprints upon Arcanes' spirit. His tales were not mere stories. They became lessons woven into the fabric of Evan's being as he grew to understand his family's history was inseparably linked with these woods, or legacy entrusted unto him and Tarek now, a gift meant for sharing beyond themselves or their immediate circle. And so it came upon this night that they were not just two travelers within Arcanes, but custodians of tales to be shared across the expanse of time, like guardians keeping watch over stories yet untold and futures still in bloom, an inheritance bestowed by spirits who had felt kinship with both men through their journeys. As Evan's mind wandered amongst these memories nestled deep within Arcanes' embrace, he realized that the grove was not merely a refuge, but an eternal narrative unfolding continuously upon its ancient bark and hidden paths, or living testament to all who sought respite or guidance. Each story had carved itself into their essences as surely as rivers shape valleys. Every footprint left behind became part of the legacy they were now bound by, a bond forged in communion with this mystical place where stories flowed like water downstream into eternity's stream, unyielding and omnipresent. The grove had not only been their sanctuary, but also Arcani's school of life. Here they learned about the ebb and flow of human experience, with laughter echoing as freely through these woods as tears mourned in silent reverence for lost ones whose stories lived on within every whisper. In sharing tales beneath starlit skies or sun-drenched days, when joyous revelry met sorrowful solace amidst friends turned family by fate's hand alone, they had all become part of Arcani's living storybook and anthology without pages that pulsed with the heartbeat of shared histories. With Tarik beside him now cradling his own dreaming form as twilight painted its hues across the sky and Eben's eyelids grew heavy with fatigue, he found himself once again in Arcani's embraces sanctuary where time seemed to weave tales as easily as a spider-crafted web. The grove had been his classroom throughout life. Here under its canopy of verdant leaves and towering oaks that whispered secrets with every rustling breeze, he learned the intricate dance between joy and sorrow, adventure and calmness, laughter and tears. The air was cooler now as evening took over from daytime warmth. Evan could feel a gentle chill seeping into his skin while wrapped in Tarik's arms, beside him on one of the weathered benches that had borne witness to countless tales spun beneath their ancient boughs. It wasn't just friendship between them anymore, their lives were entwined like roots hidden underground, supporting each other silently through seasons and storms alike. Tarik's gentle snores began as soon as the sun dipped below the horizon on this particular evening when they had decided to revisit their cherished past memories within Arcanisser Place, where every leaf was a story, and each stone held echoes of laughter from days gone by. Evan closed his eyes for just a moment longer as Tarik's breathing synchronized with the rhythmical sighs that seemed to emanate from beneath their very own feet, symphony orchestrated by nature itself, nurturing dreamers and storytellers alike. As he drifted deeper into sleep, Evan's mind traveled along a path lined with golden light where the echoes of his past journeys resonated within him, stories that had not only shaped who he was but also intertwined their destinies together in this very grove. Each memory unfolded like delicate petals, revealing hidden layers upon closer inspection, or tapestry woven from experiences unique yet shared, binding them all to Arcani's eternal narrative where laughter mingled with tears and every soul left an indelible mark within its heart. It was here that he remembered the day of his birth beneath a sky ablaze with fireworks, when Tarik had been their tour sparkling beginning amidst celebratory cheers, which now seemed like distant echoes in time's corridor as Evanon wandered through its labyrinthine halls. He recalled the day they first met among these very trees years ago, when curiosity had led them to stumble upon one another, kindred spirits finding solace under a shared canopy that promised endless discoveries and adventures yet untold, where their friendship blossomed like wildflowers after an unexpected spring shower. As Evan's mind delved further into the past, he remembered moments of loss two and friends had left this world in silence, but not without being heard within Arcani's embrace. Each memory was a testament to their own humanity and vulnerability as they sought comfort amongst these living entities that stood witness like silent guardians against time's relentless march. Tarik, now soundly sleeping beside him in his armchair of dreams made from memories only the grove could provide for its visitors to rest upon, seemed an extension of Arcani's itself, a living embodiment woven into Evan's heart with threads as golden and strong as sunlight filtering through leaves. As night enveloped them completely in a blanket spun from darkness threadbare yet comforting against the skin like warm water on weary feet, Evan's mind danced between epochs from his youthful days of mischief that led him to these woods, seeking refuge and escapade. To Tarik's side were tales not just of their own journey but also those from other souls who had found solace in Arcani's over the centuries, each story a heartbeat within this shared chronicle etched into every twist of bark or knot upon timbered shoulders that bore silent testament to histories both public and private. Evan's reverie carried him through seasons, cycling as he recalled how Arcani's had evolved with the mangrove, once merely a place for solitude, now serving also as the cradle of lifelong friendships, where bonds formed and laughter echoed across canopies and whispered secrets into hollows left by time's passage. Here they learned resilience through rain-soaked trials, that tested their spirits or sunny, Evan laid back into his chair of dreams as Tarek's voice became a lullaby against the background symphony of nighttime, where crickets played their ceaseless chorus and leaves rustled like ancient parchment in conversation with history itself. This time around, Evan found himself reliving that pivotal summer evening when he had first discovered Arcany's hidden heartbeat, or grove older than the township it lay within, which was said to have been a sanctuary for weary travelers and troubled souls since times immemorial. The air inside Evan's room hummed with stories of past visitors like him, their spirits intermingled invisibly among shadows cast by the firelight from his lamp, giving life to memories that now seemed as real as Tarek's presence beside him. He could still recall how he had stumbled into Arcany's seeking an escape and found a refuge where every tree told tales of resilience. They spoke not just with whispers, but through their very being, their scars, the patterns in bark like braille telling stories to those who would listen closely. As Tarek narrated one tale after another from his collection of friends' experiences within Arcany's embrace over decades past, Evan felt himself become part of a continuum that stretched back through time itself, for lineage of visitors seeking solace in the grove's golden light. He remembered Tarik mentioning how an old woodsman had once found peace after years of toil and sorrow while leaning against these very trees, feeling as though he was being hugged by history, every knot on their trunks a record-keeper for his silent sorrows, now etched away in the annals of time. Evan's thoughts drifted through seasons that had come and gone since those formative summers when Arcany's first opened its arms to him, the way autumn leaves fell like whispering words upon their paths during walks they took hand in hand, each step a new verse in the poem of shared experience. He remembered winter nights spent huddled together by firelight and telling stories that seemed too large for two boys yet felt as intimate to them both as secrets kept between friends, tales where heroes faced dragons with courage or lovers found their way back into each other's hearts through the language of flowers scattered at Arcany's. As Evan's mind ventured forward, he envisioned spring mornings when they had all laughed together beneath a sky painted in pastel hues, there sweet with petrichor as dew kissed their skin and sealed promises that would last well into the years to come, friendships forged not just on shared laughter but also silent understanding, an unspoken bond woven from threads of countless stories whispering through Arcany's. The gentle murmur in Tarek's voice spoke now about how these groves were known as places where time stood still, a sanctuary for moments to linger and be relived with each visit, the past not left behind but carried forward like a river that flows both ways when you listen closely enough. Evan's heart swelled at this notion. He had always felt an inexplicable connection here beyond friendship or mere acquaintance. It was as if every leafy bough and gnarled root held the weight of his history, shaping him into who he became. Night deepened its hold on Evan's world just a touch more firmly when Tarik began to speak about Arcany's own evolution, alongside them how it had grown from an untouched grove with secrets whispering in the wind where they would wander and wonder until sleep claimed their youthful spirits. He remembered how each friend added layers of history into Evan's heart like rings within a tree trunk. Every new memory was another layer that made Arcany's not just part of his past, but also an integral piece of who he was, taught, a constant presence in the very fiber of his being, as unchangeable and comforting as sunlight on skin. As Evan's reverie turned towards futures yet to unfold within this sacred grove's timeless embrace, Tarik shared dreams where Arcany's would continue to be a refuge for souls, a living tapestry of stories that he and others had woven together over lifetimes. They spoke now with voices softened by the promise of tomorrow, plans made not just for adventures yet to come but also reflections on lessons learned from seasons past, each memory etched into Arcany's as deeply as a carving in wood or an indel under a blanket of twinkling stars embraced by dusky purple and rosed skies. Evan lay nestled between two comforting armstirricks that whispered tales into his dreamy consciousness like the very zephyrs they had often found solace in. The grove around them seemed to hold its breath, as if it too understood the significance of what was unfolding at this tender hour, underneath a sky where constellations played hide and seek with night's velvety curtain or canvas for their shared memories. The ancient trees stood guard over secrets untold but felt in Evan's bones. They were the sentinels of time within Arcany's, each creaky limb a testament to countless stories that had been lived and loved beneath its watchful eyes. The grove's heartbeat was steady with history, a pulse shared by Tarik as he traced lines in Evan's palm from their previous night of stargazing, where they spoke under the cloak of celestial wonders about dreams that had once been and futures yet to weave into existence. Tonight was different. It felt like a chapter closing gently as both friends prepared themselves for rest after an evening spent in Arcanis or Sacred Grove, where every leaf, each stone path worn by the souls of wanderers past, resonated with their shared narratives and unspoken pacts. As Tarik's fingers traced patterns on Evan's hand, he had found to be as much a part of him as his own heartbeat or comforting rhythm that promised growth alongside continuity. The grove would remain steadfast in its role through every chapter yet unwritten by their lives. In hushed voices barely above a murmur lost within one another's warmth and echoed against ancient bark, they spoke of tomorrow with eyes closed but hearts open wide of adventures that awaited them still among the trees whose roots had cradled countless generations before their own. Tarik wove tales not just for Evan's mind to entertain, but also his soul's heart and spirit as he prepared him, in whispers of moonlight, for dreamscapes where Arcanes would offer sanctuary or refuge against the tempests that life outside its borders might bring. As sleep began to weave a gentle spell over them both, with threads silvered by shared histories touching futures imagined within this living memory bank of green, they found solace in knowing their presence here was as much about honoring Arcanes' past role in the lives of others who had walked its paths before them. And now that legacy would be passed on to Evan, a new layer added through his own experiences and those he chose to share with Tarik, creating a tapestry richer still by each thread woven into it. Every laughter echoed within the grove's embrace became part of its soul. Evan's breathing slowed as if synchronizing itself with Arcanis or harmony that resonated through his core and up to Tarik, who ensured he was safe in their shared dream time until sleep would pull them deeper into the arms of Morpheus himself. The night air carried whispers from a place where time seemed irrelevant. It hummed tunes only heard by those with hearts entwined, or song that spoke not just to Evan and Tarik but also Arcanes itself, affirming its eternal role in the stories of all who sought refuge within. As sleep enveloped them both like a warm blanket stitched from golden moments past, their shared whispers became one with night's chorus or lullaby for souls seeking comfort and continuity beneath Arcanes' watchful gaze, where the roots of friendship intertwined as steadfastly as those that gripped its soil. And so they rested within this grove, each breath a note in an ancient song sung by countless before them. It was here their dreams would roam free and unfettered, or promise, not just for Evan, but also Arcanes itself, which stood as unyielding guardian of histories, both lived and penned. With the last syllable of a soft-spoken wish hanging suspended in air, they drifted into sleep's embrace or promise to return with tales yet told. For Arcanes was more than just backdrop or setting within their shared epic tale, but an eternal character itself that had grown alongside Evan and Tarik through every turn of the hourglass. As Evan and Tarik nestled under Arcanes' comforting shade in its grove of intertwined roots, their minds wandered through realms beyond imagination, a journey not just for them, but a voyage shared by countless souls before this very moment. It was here that the whispers turned into dreams, and visions danced behind closed eyelids like fireflies in an endless night sky. Their latest adventure had brought Evan to Arcanes as he sought solace from a world where time seemed relentlessly linear, place that no clock or calendar could contain within its confines, for here the only measure of existence was heartbeats and shared moments under this protective embrace. Tarik's eyes fluttered closed gently, his breath even as Evan reached out to trace their names once more upon Arcanes, ancient bark or ritual that bound them not just in spirit, but also within the tapestry of legends woven by this sentient forest. With every touch and caress against its time-worn texture, they felt themselves becoming part of a continuum stretching back through eons, to when Arcanes was merely an unformed thought dreamt into existence. Arcanes had watched over the realms for eternity. It cradled civilizations in their infancy and guided them towards evolution or downfall with equal impartiality, its heartbeat echoing through every creature that called these lands home. And now Evan's presence was another stitch within this grand quilt of Timar, living thread binding the fabric together anew for each cycle, as it always had been since Arcanes itself first rooted into being under a sky unblemished by sorrow or despair. Thrice did they breathe in synchrony, their shared whispers rising like incense and fading with tenderness into the nighter litany of thanks for protection, offered without expectation as arcanes. Ancient magic hummed beneath them, a constant undercurrent to their existence alongside its own. Their dreams unfurled in wild abandon across landscapes that defied earthly logic. They stood atop colossal mountains whose peaks reached into the heavens and then plunged suddenly downward like great sinking hearts as rivers of molten silver flowed through valleys carved by time itself. They soared on wings crafted from stardust, danced with creatures born not just of fear, but pure joy within this realm where beauty was untainted and sorrow had no dominion or place, that could only exist in the mind's eye or under Arcane's benevolent shroud. And when their dream-born journey led them back to reality, it felt less like an ending than a poor sphere bodies still beneath earthly beds, but souls untethered by any singular existence, here in between waking and sleeping hours. They could sense the world's pulse continuing its relentless march forward even as they lingered in stasis, held captive only to time's passage within this secret grove of Arcanes where history was eternally rewritten, with each shared whisper like a new chapter added unto an endless book. It wasn't just Evan who found respite beneath these branches. The forest seemed aware as well, its leaves rustling in quiet applause for every act of kindness and courage performed within this sacred space or place where even shadows knew their names with reverence whispered through Arcanes' roots. Their dreamscape adventures gave way to memories that tasted like the first bloom after winter's frost, each recollection a petal unfurling in sunlight, as Evan and Tarek revisited not just their past, but also lives lived by others through mosaic of experiences where every heartbeat was felt more deeply than any physical touch. Here they learned lessons from heroes who had stood before them, whose stories were engraved into Arcane's very essence like grooves in ancient stone. There once was a warrior named Eliana, bold and fierce as the storms that raged upon her beloved homeland. Her laughter echoed through valleys where rivers sang of joyous times when she danced beneath Arcanes' canopy alongside kings who knew no crown but fairness in their hearts or testament to a people bound by more than mere law and decree, for here they were united not just as subjects or sovereigns but also kin. In another era, within this shared memory space, where time folded upon itself like origami sculptures the grove was always in motion, its vibrant tableau alive with colors that seemed too bright for mortal eyes yet were as real as the heartbeats of Evan and Tarek within their chests, their very own sanctuary, where time danced to a different rhythm. Here they could revisit not only echoes of laughter, but also silences heavy with unspoken words, each memory wrapped in layers like petals around the stem, together forming an intricate bouquet that spoke more than any verbal exchange ever might. As Evan traced the pattern on a fallen leaf or map to forgotten stories etched into its veins by time itself, Tarek's gaze found Eliana in their shared reverie, her image as clear and striking against Arcane's backdrop of greenery, as if she stood before them now. Her laughter was always a melody here, one that resonated with the purity of love untainted by power or privilege, at stark contrast to Evan's own memories where jewels and crowns had shaped his life's course, but never its heartbeat. Eliana approached them, a spirit borne aloft on wings spun from the purest moonlight. Her eyes held centuries of wisdom as she joined hands with Evan's shadow in placer union between realms unseen yet felt by all who dwelt within Arcane's embrace. Her presence was an affirmation, a reminder that kinship knew no bounds beyond the flesh and blood they occupied. It transcended into shared spirit for those willing to look deeper than surface connections could ever offer. Together with Eliana, guiding their journey through memories of days when valor shone not just in acts but also unwavering loyalty, Evan felt his heart swell or blossom unfolding within the garden of recollection that he had tended to since childhood alongside Tarek. They walked hand in hand down a memory lane where stories flowed like rivers and legends grew as tall as trees reaching for skies only imagined by those who lived in fear rather than faith. As they strolled, Evan could hear the distant echoes of Eliana's laughter mingling with his own tales, woven into every leaf that brushed against their skin and carried on Arcane's breezes like threads through a tapestry spanning lifetimes. The courage she inspired in her people, as they faced down hordes of darkness to protect the sanctity of home beneath this very canopy. Your legacy lived eternally within these sacred grounds, where every stone and stream bore witness to their history. Their adventures through time found them walking alongside kings who wore not crowns but garlands made from wildflowers, each petal a promise of peaceful reign rather than tyranny's heavy hand, a realm ruled by the heart's purity and justice as its highest law. And here in Arcanes, Evan felt he had been granted unparalleled access to their kingdom, an invitation into legends that were his own flesh and blood, kindred spirits, shared heritage, or gift beyond measure for a soul hungry for connection with the past and its people. Eliana led them through tales of love so profound it could move mountains, where heartstrings plucked melodies more haunting than any harp's sweetest cry. And in her presence, Evan understood his own story was not singular, but part of a grand massacre piece forged from the experiences and dreams shared by those who had journeyed through Arcanes before him. The grove enveloped them as night began to fall, its embrace softer than silk, yet imbued with warmth that defied evening's chill touch. Tarek's hand found Evan's in a silent promissory vow of never forgetting the lessons taught by heroes and kings alike who had passed through Arcanes before them, those whose memories they carried like treasures too precious to be lost within their own minds. And as sleep approached, as twilight deepened into night in Arcanes, Evan and Eliana found themselves nestled between ancient oaks whose gnarled roots whispered secrets of old. The grove was their sanctuary, a place where time seemed to stand still amid the symphony of crickets, serenades echoing through the leaves above them. With gentle hands, Evan traced patterns in Eliana's cheek as they sat upon a bed of mossy stones beneath her branches, their fingers intertwined like vines growing toward each other across seasons and generations alike, yet tactile, testament to bonds unbroken by distance or time. Above them, the first stars began twinkling into existence as Eliana shared tales of a moonlit banquet held in honor of Arcanes' founders, where under silvered candlelight laughter danced like flickering shadows upon polished marble walls and wines flowed freely from goblets that had toasted countless victories. Evan listened, eyes closed as if drinking deeply the sweet nectar of her words, felt himself partaking in a feast not for his body but soul. He drank it all with unrestrained longing and thirsty wonderment at how history could be tasted upon one's tongue. Their conversation meandered through stories where love was the compass by which destinies were navigated, leading Evan to marvel not only at Eliana's beauty but also her spirit, her fierce and passionate blaze that had guided many a heart back from despair's darkest reaches. In Arcanes, it seemed love was both shield and spear in the never-ending quest for harmony within its realm. Tales of star-crossed lovers who defied feuding families to wed beneath moonbeams were as commonplace here as blooming wildflowers adorning banners that declared peace. Evan's mind wandered further back, tracing the lineage of his ancestry, a tapestry so rich and textured it felt impossible for any single thread to be responsible solely for weaving him into Arcanes' narrative fabric. He pondered how each person had been a strand themselves in history's grand design. He realized that, although the world was ever changing around them like seasons yielding to one another, at its core remained an essence of constancy, strength, and resilience inherited from those who walked before him through this grove so many lifetimes ago. As they lay beneath their arboreal guardians with the night embracing Arcanes like a mother swaddling her child, Evan felt an ancient power course through his veins, her lineage-born affinity for this land and its people that he had yet to fully understand, but which whispered in hushed tones of kinship. And herein lay the heartbeat of history's resonance. It thrummed within him as surely as Eliana's own pulse against his skin, a silent symphony echoing across generations that were themselves an audience to this unfolding tale or story yet unfinished but already complete in its chapters. With each passing moment beneath the grove's sheltered boughs and within Eliana's embrace of truthful tales, Evan felt himself growing closer not just to her or Arcanes but a communion with history itself, a thread that connected him backward in time as much as forward. Her stories were more than mere words. They painted the strokes upon his heart's canvas and illuminated paths through histories yet walked, inviting Evan into realms of possibility where he could live out legends forged from dreamers' aspirations, or legacy interwoven with that which had been. As sleep claimed them in gentle arms like the world succumbing to night's embrace after daylight hours have faded, Evan and Eliana found solace not only within each other but also between themselves, as part of a continuum or lineage reaching back beyond memory's grasp into Arcanes' very essence. Their shared dream was one where they both had always belonged. Every tale whispered beneath the canopy, whether sung by bard or borne on wind's breath through Eilionr's golden locks, all carried them closer to a kinship that transcended time and mere existence into something ethereal. For in Arcanes lived not only Evan's ancestors, but also the souls of his lineage, where each step on cobble stone, every breath drawn the twilight draped itself across Arcanes like a velvet shroud as Evan and Aeliana settled into their usual nook within its shelter, cradled by ancient oaks whose roots were woven with whispers of old magic long forgotten. The grove's hushed serenity was punctuated only by the gentle lapping waves against jagged rocks at the water's edge, and Aeliana reciting tales that seemed to flow like lullabies from her lips, intertwining Evan with histories he never lived but felt as if they had always been part of his very being. As night deepened its hold on Arcanes, it brought forth a tapestry of stars, each one twinkling stories only the nocturnal creatures and moonlit flowers could decipher. Evan watched in wonder at how Aeliana's tales seemed to animate these constellations. They were not just celestial bodies, but guides through forgotten epochs, narrating epics of heroes born from shadowed corners as if destiny itself had penned them down beneath the cloak of night. A particular story about a young alchemist named Elaine Court Evans fascinated Gazer tale that resonated with an enigmatic sense of purpose and longing within his soul. The narrative unfolded as Aeliana spoke, her voice carrying him forward in time to the heart of Arcanes' darkest age, when alchemy was not just a science, but artistry itself. It bridged worlds through transmutation that melded dream and reality into one iridescent spectrum. The tale led Evan on an evocative journey where Aeolian sought the rare celestial bloomer flower said to bear essence of pure creation when kissed by moonlight at a precise moment during the equinox under Arcanes' most secretive grove. The blooming of this spectral flora was tied not only to nature's cycles, but also celestial alignments, believed to hold dominion over life and death itself within its ephemeral petals that shimmered with a kaleidoscope of impossible hues under starlight's tender caress. Evan listened intently as Aeliana described how Aeolian had embarked upon this quest driven by sorrow, for the loss of kin whose lives were intertwined with his own lineage. It was a yearning to grasp at threads that might weave them back together across time's expansive tapestry. Each step through Arcanes' ancient paths brought Aeolian closer not only to discovery but also inward toward understanding the purpose imbued within their very essence, which Aeliana revealed was as complex and multifaceted as any mythic quest for truth itself or pilgrimage that transcended physical travel. The narrative unfolded into a delicate dance of revelation. Aelian found himself before the grove, where Arcanes' heart whispered secrets through mossy stones and intertwined roots, as if to protect sacred histories from unworthy hands that might not comprehend their depth. Here in this consecrated space, time seemed suspended or pocket of eternity within which moments could expand into lifetimes or contract backward like a spiraling staircase disappearing behind the horizon's edge. Evan's heart ached with Aeolian as he recounted his encounter at this hallowed grove, wherein each step upon ancient cobblestones seemed to reverberate through epochs of time and echo within Evan himself his pulse and homage to Arcanes' lineage. The air was thick with the scent of blooming night flowers that released their perfume in silent prayer, as if each fragrance carried a note from history's grand symphony meant only for those attuned to its frequencies or harmony, where every exhaled breath became part of an ancestral chorus singing through the ages. The story reached its zenith with Aeolian's touch upon the celestial bloom, his fingers tracing fractal patterns that mirrored constellations. He had sought not only to reclaim what was lost, but also rediscover a sense of connection so potent it could mend hearts and bridge souls. As moonbeams kissed its petals in reverence for the night's sacred moment, Aeolian whispered an ode that resonated with Evan's own heart, or plea to understand his place within Arcanes, not merely as a visitor, but as one who was forever part of this realm. As Aeolian finished his ode to Arcanes under the moonlit sky, he looked into Evan's eyes, a mirror reflecting back at him not just a stranger, but an essential part of this world that had begun to weave itself around them both like threads in tapestry. The celestial bloom stood witness as Aeolian took his hand and led the way towards its heart, where night-blooming flowers unfurled their petals with deliberate grace under Evan's touch, each one a keeper of silent histories, whispering secrets to those who would listen closely. The two men moved through Orcani's sacred grounds in companionable silence until Aline stopped before the great stone obelisk that served as an anchor for all things eternal within this grove, its glyphs a map across time itself. Evan felt his spirit stir with recognition and understanding. He had sensed it since their first encounter, a profound kinship to Orcani's soul rooted deep in the marrow of his bones. Aline knelt beside him as if offering an ancient benediction, then extended a hand towards Evan's heart with gentle certainty that he knew no words were needed when truth was so clearly felt between them. Aline and Evan shared blood, not just in the genetic sense, but within each other's very essence. The obelisk seemed to hum their intertwined destinies as they stood now together at its base, were halves of a whole that had been lost yet was never truly apart. The night air wrapped around them like an old cloak, and Evan took a deep breath in sync with the world's timeless sigh. He closed his eyes to envision not just himself, but all those who came before him, ancestors whose spirits might walk among these Kabbalist zero-stead paths as surely as he did now beside Aline. Aline's hand hovered over a mossy stone, feeling the pulse of history beneath his fingertips. It was time to reveal secrets only known within this enclave where past and present danced in eternal embrace, or dance that Evan had long been apart from until Aline's touch reawakened him. The celestial bloom, now more than just a flower, but as the crucible of their newfound unity, required one final step to complete its magic. Aline reached down and plucked an ancient coin with runes that shone like molten silver under moonlight's caress. He offered it up before Evan, a relic from times when Orcani's was more than a memory within his bloodline, but the very essence of existence itself for those who dwelled here in their ancestral home. Evan accepted the coin with reverence. He could feel its energy course through him as Aline spoke softly. It is time to journey backward along this spiral staircase that weaves into eternity, where moments become lifetimes and our paths converge not just in space but across epochs. Together they walked towards the ancient stones of Orcani's founding, or testament carved by hands long returned to dust. Aline placed his ear against a particularly weathered boulder as if it were an altar for communion with time itself, and he closed his eyes in prayerful meditation while Evan waited beside him, feeling the vibrations of ages that hummed beneath their fingertips on stone cold to touch. The world around them seemed alive. Even shadows swayed like dancers caught between two realms, or liminal space where Aline and Evan stood united at its edge as one with the continuum, transcending mere physicality for a shared soulful existence within the sacred grove. As they stepped forward to touch these stones of beginnings once more in their newfound unity, time itself seemed poised on precipice, past and future blurring into an endless now, where Aline could finally understand the full scope of his lineage's legacy intertwined with Evan's. Aline spoke softly as if addressing not just himself but to all those who would bear witness. Here in this place that has seen birth and demise beyond countless seasons, we call upon you, time guardians of Orcani's. Let us weave our souls into the fabric of eternity together. Evan nodded with quiet understanding as Aline took his hand once more. Their touch melded like water meeting its reflection. Together they reached out to trace a path upon this timeless ground, or physical manifestation that would signify not as Aline and Evan moved through Arcanis or timeless grove where history whispered in every rustle of leaves. They felt an awakening within their souls that transcended mere mortality. With each step taken upon ancient stone pathways worn smooth by countless footsteps before them, the world around seemed to breathe with life itself. Shadows, swaying like dancers caught between two realms, where Aline and Evan stood united at its edge as one within this sacred grove. Aline's voice grew softer yet resonant in his timbre, a gentle invocation that felt both personal to him but universal for all time guardians of Arcanis, this place birthed by the earth and cradled through millennia. Here we stand on hallowed ground, where every echo carries stories of yore. I call upon you, O timeless sentinels who have borne witness to ages past. Let us intertwine our essences into eternity's tapestry together. Evan nodded as he took Aline's hand once more, gesture not merely physical, but a binding of spirits across the veil that divides mere flesh from immortal legacy. The touch between them melded like water meeting its reflection, an amalgamation where neither sought dominance nor surrender, They desired only to merge with purpose and reverence for their shared heritage intertwined within this grove's heart were unity that spoke of ages long past when Arcanes itself was but a whisper in the world's ear. Guided by an unspoken communion, Ilian raised his hand to trace symbols upon stone-formed earth. These glyphs not only bore testimony to their intentions, but also paid homage to those who had come before the line of guardians and kings whose spirits now lingered in the air around them. Evan's own fingers followed, imprinting parallel marks that intersected with Ilian's as if they were converging streams flowing into a single river course destined to reach even further shores beyond time itself, where their descendants might one day dwell within Arcanes and its sacred grove. As the symbols took form, an ethereal light seemed to emanate from them, not of this world's make, but a luminescence born purely in spirit and intention that transcended mere physicality, a beacon calling forth those who would carry on their shared legacy through generations yet unborn. Ilian spoke once again, his voice now laced with the tranquility born from centuries of contemplation. Within this grove's embrace lies a power that we have long sought to harness, or confluence, where past and future converge into an eternal present. Evan's eyes held understanding, shimmering with the reflection not only of Ilian, but also of Arcanes itself. Together they looked upon their handiwork, a path that snaked through verdant underbrush towards ancient ruins whose stones bore witness to civilizations both fallen and forgotten, a reminder that while empires may crumble, legacies endure within the essence of those who stand in unity with time's flow, within these hallowed grounds where every element seemed alive itself, from the whispering wind through leaves bearing tales older than themselves to the very air charged with potent magic. Her was a place that allowed one's spirit not just to connect, but truly merge within an endless tapestry of existence, woven by hands both mortal and divine. As Ilian drew Evan deeper into this sacred space where time held no dominion over the soul's journey, they came upon crystals imbued with energies that pulsed like a heartbeat beneath their touch, a rhythm in sync with every aspiration of the spirit seeking transcendence beyond mere flesh. Here Ilian found his purpose, not just as guardian, but heir to an ancient legacy woven into this very grove's being, where Evan discovered that love and unity could be more than abstract concepts when shared within a space imbued with magic, or union forged in the crucible of eternity itself. The couple continued their journey, retracing paths once taken by ancestors whose echoes reverberated through time's corridor. Each step forward was an act that threaded them into this world's grand tapestry, a testament to a shared destiny interwoven with the grove of Arcanes. Ilian felt his soul expand, feeling more at one with their 087641293F as Ilian and Evan stepped further into Arcanes' grove's heart under the watchful gaze of twilight. A hush fell over the mass sanctuary, where time bowed to their journey's tempo instead of dictating it with relentless march. The grove was alive in ways beyond comprehension. Trees swayed not just from wind, but seemed as if they whispered secrets carried across centuries through rustling leaves, a testament that Ilian and Evan were no mere visitors within these woods touched by the divine hand of nature's own making. Ilian's fingers trailed along moss-covered stones worn smooth from countless passings before the metaphysical connection to ancestors who had walked this sacred ground under similar skies, their spirits lingering as faint echoes in every gust that caressed the grove's ancient bark. The crystals Evan discovered pulsed rhythmically beneath his touch. They resonated with energies not yet fully understood by human minds, but felt deeply within Ilian's soul, a shared heartbeat between man and nature, a cadence that spoke of unity beyond the physical realm, with each beat echoing through their joined hands. It was as if love amplified itself in this eternal space, where every touch transcended mere flesh for something far greater, an unbreakable bond with all existence woven into Arcanes' very essence. As they ventured deeper, the grove revealed more of its hidden depths, a labyrinthine path that twisted and turned as if to challenge their resolve, yet invited them forth in a dance older than memory itself. Each step was an acceptance not just into this sanctuary, but also onwards along paths trodden by those who had come before, guardians of the grove's legacy. The couple found themselves at what appeared as a natural amphitheater carved from stone and earth, or place where Ilian felt his heart swell with an unexplainable connection to this space that cradled them in its embrace, just like their own union had once done when they first met. under the watchful gaze of many moons. Here was a clearing bathed in moonlight, filtering through ancient canopies and casting patterns upon ground kissed by starlit dew or tableau that seemed to pause time itself for Elian's solemn vow as he recited words older than memory, ancestral pledges of protection passed down from guardian to custodian. In this moment suspended between worlds, Evan found himself overcome by the majesty and grandeur before the realization that love was more potent here among these mystical trees, where reality seemed interwoven with threads of fantasy. As he looked into Elian's eyes, he saw not just his partner, but a reflection of an ancient force pulsing within this sacred heartland. It was as though their souls had always belonged to the grove, and only now were they awakening its call through mutual recognition of shared destiny entwined with Arcane's fate. Surrounded by nature's splendor, Elian embraced Evan tight, not just physically but spiritually as well. He felt their energies merge into a single entity within the grove that stood guardian to both of them and countless others who had sought refuge or guidance before. Arcanes was not merely an environment for traveling souls. It seemed more like home, where Elian's very being resonated with Evan's as if they were one, or convergence, amplified by the magic that pulsed through every leaf and branch around them. The couple took a moment to stand in silence amidst this sacred grove of Arcanes, allowing themselves time not just for rest, but also reflection on their journey thus far. Both felt an unspoken understanding between heartbeats. Their love had become part of something eternal that transcended even the longest paths they might have walked. As Elian and Evan continued to explore this hallowed ground, guided by intuition as much as sight, each discovery brought them closer together in ways no earthly bond could fathom, a connection so profound it seemed as if Arcanes itself had conspired with fate for their union. They stumbled upon a series of natural springs that whispered secrets about purification and renewal. Bathing became not just cleansing but an act to reinvigorate spirit, leaving them feeling lighter yet more intertwined than before as they emerged from the waters like phoenixes born anew. The evening waned into night's embrace with stars twinkling consp as Elian and Evan continued to explore this hallowed ground of Arcanes. They felt as if each step was leading them deeper into a tapestry woven by unseen hands, or place where time seemed suspended in an eternal twilight that kissed their skin with the cool touch of infinity. The couple found themselves on a path less trodden, but imbued with ancient energies, veiled beneath canopies whispering tales older than memory itself. The air here was scented with pine and petrichor. It carried within its perfume an essence that lulled the senses into serene complacency, or melody of nature playing soothingly in their ears as they ambled hand in hand, wrapped together like two souls seeking solace from life's relentless pace. In silence, where words often fail to capture such profound connections between beings, Elian and Evan shared glances that spoke volume as their silent language born of understanding transcending mere emotion or affection. It was as though they could read each other's thoughts with the clarity provided by this sacred grove. Sud 012345678 tilde ### chapter 28. As Elian and Evan ventured deeper into Arcanes, their spirits were entwined in a dance as old as time itself. They sought not just the beauty of nature, but also communion with something far greater than themselves. They stumbled upon an ancient stone circle encircled by moss-laden trees that had stood sentinel over countless ages, or testament to permanence amidst fleeting human existence. The couple approached tentatively, feeling as if every step forward was guided not only by their desire for exploration but also a pull towards something deeper and more profound than a physical realm they knew. As Elian reached out her hand toward an old oak at its center, she felt warmth radiating through stone to bark, or conduit of unseen energies that thrummed with life's pulse. Evan joined in, and together circled the sacred circle as dusk melted into night's soft embrace. Stars began their slow dance across a canvas sky, illuminating paths only visible when darkness fell, a celestial map guiding Elian and Evan onward through twilight's domain. The couple lay down upon an ancient bed of leaves beneath the watchful gaze of constellations as they closed their eyes to drink in Arcane's essence, allowing its magic to weave into them like threads, binding two halves of a single entity, or bond that promised unity and eternal harmony. As night deepened around Elian and Evan's shared embrace within the circle, they could feel their individual selves dissolving until only one being remained in consciousness. It was as if by surrendering to Arcane's whim they had become conduits for a love so pure that its purity bathed them both, a union of souls unburdened by the trivialities and tragedies born from human affairs. In their joined solitude under celestial lights, Ilian felt her heartbeat sync with Evan's in perfect cadence. They were two harps, becoming one complete melody within Arcane's serene symphony of existence, their harmony that transcended all understanding to touch upon the divine. A subtle vibration began beneath them, a resonance so profound it seemed as if time itself bowed in reverence. Ilian and Evan were no longer merely travelers through this realm, but now part of its eternal fabric, a testament that their journey had found not just refuge or guidance within Arcane's sacred grove. With every breath, the couple exhaled a sense of purpose into the universe around them. They knew in their hearts that no earthly bond could fathom what lay ahead for Ilian and Evan, as one being, her path lit by stardust where destiny awaited to unravel its mysteries. As dawn approached, bringing with it a soft glow upon Arcane's eternal twilight, the couple rose from their shared solace. They knew that although this place was beyond mortal comprehension and boundless in beauty, it would always be home for them as long as love remained between Ilian and Evan. With renewed vigor born of night's magic coursing through their veins like life-giving elixir, the couple turned from Arcane's embrace to continue onwards. They carried with them an awareness that all which had transpired in this final chapter was but a prelude single. As night descended and stars peppered the sky above Arcane's twilight realm, Ilian felt a pang of homesickness for their true selves. They were still firmly rooted in human form, yet began to sense that perhaps this was not where home truly belonged any more. Beside them stood Evan, whose own eyes now shimmered with an otherworldly light, as if reflecting the cosmos itself within his soul's depths. "We must move on," Ilian murmured softly, their voice barely a whisper, above the symphony of twilight noises that blanketed Arcane's like velvet dusk upon tired shoulders. Evan nodded solemnly. They understood this was not just an end, but also a beginning, or threshold between worlds uncharted by mortal minds, yet beckoning with whispers as ancient and profound as time itself. And so Ilian took hold of their companion's hand once more before the veil that separated them from Arcane's could ever fully part. They felt a pull at heartstrings finer than any ethereal force known to mankind or spirit alike, their yearning for adventure and discovery beyond this sacred grove. Evan, with eyes cast downward towards earthly concerns, yet knowing the journey ahead would demand more from them both in courage and faith, found solace within Ilian's Anwar 03. "I apologize for not providing a complete answer, as I was unable to finish due to limitations of my current capabilities. However, here is an attempt at continuing the story." Ilian took hold of Evan's hand once more before dawn crept upon them like morning dew on grass, or promise that no darkness could persist unchallenged for long within Arcane's embrace. The couple found themselves standing not as separate entities, but intertwined in a dance choreographed by destiny itself, their footsteps echoing the harmonious beat of cosmic strings vibrating through existence. "We were just two travelers seeking refuge," Ilian sighed into Evan's ear, "but now we are companions bound together beyond mere mortal understanding." They knew this grove was but a haven within their grander Odyssey journey, where the heart and soul would find union with something greater than themselves. And as they rose from Arcane's sacred embrace under the first kiss of dawn, Ilian felt an awakening surge through them. It wasn't fear that stirred within their chest, but a rousing sense of purpose, or clarion call to face whatever lay beyond this twilight realm. The couple turned from Arcane's embrace with renewed vigor, for they carried in themselves the luminescence of stardust and the warmth of shared adventures, yet uncharted by any who had dared before them venture into such boundless beauty as this sacred grove provided. Evan's hand remained clasped within Ilian's, their fingers entwined like living filaments connecting souls across realms. The couple understood that although Arcane's would always be a part of who they were, their very essence now intertwined with its eternal magic. With this knowledge nestled deep in their hearts and minds, as if it had been waiting for them all along, Ilian looked to Evan's eyes once more before embarking upon the path forward, an affirmation that although they might one day have to part ways from each other due to forces unknown even within Arcane's itself, they would always carry this sacred grove and its lessons with them wherever their journey led next. As Ilian turned towards the world beyond, a new-found strength radiated through their being. It was as though every step forward on that path taken together in twilight-bound camaraderie had now become an extension of themselves, a manifestation of shared dreams and silent promises whispered under cover of night. With each stride towards the unknown, Ilian felt less like a mere traveller through life's myriad possibilities. They were more than just two souls caught between realms, but rather one entity evolving into something transcendent, or fusion, where love itself could alter time and space as Arcanes had done for them. The pair ventured